Hey there, so this is going to be really fun. FFG has sent me 2 cards to preview for you from Jump to Lightspeed. I'm really excited to show them off. Thanks to FFG for giving me a chance to do this. Just before we get going, in case you're new to this channel, just wanted to let you know, I focus here on this channel primarily on competitive Star Wars Unlimited, but I also do feature a lot of off-meta discussions, some strategy videos, and also just like general card discussions. If any of this seems interesting to you, please hit that subscribe button, check out some of my content. You can also check out even more on my Patreon. Link is in the description. So before I do the previews, I did want to just show you this new leader. This has just been revealed right before this video went live. It's Darth Vader. So one of the cards that is going to be previewed has a direct tie-in into this leader, which is why I wanted to show it off. He is a 6-cost deploy leader that has an action on his front side that says if you attack with a non-token vehicle, you get to make a TIE fighter. That's a 1/1 space unit. And yeah, he flips on 6. He's a 5/6, or as an upgrade, as a pilot, a 5+5/+5 to whatever he is attaching to, and makes 2 TIE fighter tokens when he does that. So I'll talk a little bit more about this leader later when we see one of the preview cards. But the first preview card is this one. It's I Have You Now. This is a 1-cost cunning villainy event. It's a tactic. It says attack with a vehicle unit, prevent all damage that would be dealt to it during this attack. Yeah, very simple. It's an uncommon. Cards like this are pretty efficient. There is a similar one, Shoot First, from the first set, Spark of Rebellion. It's really useful to have a card like this to basically use your unit as like pseudo removal, right? You use your unit, you attack into something, and this card essentially protects it. So you still get your 1-for-1. It's like you used this one card to remove one of your enemy's units. Of course, it all needs to line up, right? You need to have a vehicle in play, and your vehicle needs to be able to attack and defeat something. In this case, though, different from Shoot First, you don't actually have to defeat the unit you attack. No matter what, whatever you attack with will not take any damage back. So in the cases where you can't actually defeat the unit, you still get to protect your unit. Very niche situations where that might come up, where the opponent has like maybe a very giant sentinel or something, and you have 2 units and you have to get through it. At least this way, you can protect one of your units and it won't be defeated. If you compare it directly to Shoot First has very similar mechanics here. The idea here is that you attack with a unit and then your unit won't take any damage back. In Shoot First case, you don't have to do it with a vehicle, and you even get spotted a +1 attack. You don't get spotted that +1 attack with I Have You Now. The downside there with Shoot First is if you aren't able to defeat the unit, you will take damage back, and that will never be the case with I Have You Now. And I think this card will be very, very effective in draft specifically. Shoot First was an incredible card in Spark of Rebellion draft, and I have a sense that this will also be pretty good. You get a lot of like unit-on-unit combat in limited, and a way to like basically turn one resource into defeat one of your opponent's units, even though you have to use up one of your attacks, tends to be pretty effective. Shoot First has also been a very good draft card. It's seen situational constructed play, and I do think that +1 power that you would get from Shoot First does make it probably slightly more efficient in constructed. You have to remember that a lot of units in this game do have more health than they have power, which is why that +1 from Shoot First is pretty effective in creating trade-ups. And I Have You Now, although you won't be defeated no matter what, it's not going to be particularly efficient if all you're doing is bashing into something to deal some damage to it, and you don't end up defeating whatever you attack. So there is upside for sure with the ability to do that. And like I said, especially when you're talking about like really large units that you absolutely have to defeat, I Have You Now can be effective in conjunction with like a couple units that you have to get through that. But yeah, I think it'll be our standout card in draft, maybe fringe in constructed, but I think that's okay. This is a really cool card in general, and it gives you a little more options in addition to a fairly similar card in Shoot First. And the next card, this is the one that I think is got a pretty direct tie-in into the Darth Vader leader we just saw. This is Victor Leader. This is a 3-cost command villainy space unit. It has Imperial Vehicle Fighter traits. It's a 2/4, and it says each other friendly space unit gets +1/+1, and this is a rare. So this is pretty powerful. I really like that this has 4 health. 4 health on a 3-cost space unit is pretty durable. 3 health is kind of where things are pretty fragile in space. 3 power, there's a lot of space units that can push 3 power right now. Not so many that can push 4, especially on turn 2. And with all these permanent buff effects, you get like pseudo immediate value from them as long as you have any units in play already, because that +1/+1, you kind of get to use it that turn. So you have a unit that gets this buff, and you generally sacrifice stats to get it. And you do here. You get a 2/4. I think the baseline stat line for a 3-cost ship right now is 3/4. So you've mostly given up 1 power on this unit to get this buff. And what I'm really happy about here is that you gave up the power and not the health. And a lot of these units, I'm about to show you 6 other buff units. A lot of these, they have given up health in order to get these like global buffs, and that has made them very fragile, and a lot of them don't see much play because of that. So Red 3 is probably the one that sees the most play on the cards on this list. I mean, a couple of them are from the new set, so they have not seen any play yet. But Red 3 does see play primarily in like Sabine aggro decks, sometimes in like Quinlan aggressive decks, and it's a powerful card. But Raid 1 is a significantly weaker effect than +1/+1, right? And as long as you're meeting the criteria in Red 3, it's heroic cards. For Victor Leader, it's all space units, right? Then you much rather have the +1/+1. And Red 3 is extremely fragile. It still sees a decent amount of play, but 3 health makes it pretty quick to remove. And I think that 4 health on Victor Leader is going to prove to be quite useful. We have General Veers and General Dodonna. They are the most direct counters to this, where they are the other cards that give +1/+1 for Imperial and Rebel cards. General Veers does not see much play. Dodonna, very fringe play, sometimes again in Sabine aggro decks, but they both have sacrificed health for their effects, right? 3 health on a 3 drop on ground is below rate. 4 health on a 4 drop on ground, also below rate. Makes these cards fragile. Ground also tends to be much more cluttered than space, which is going to make that Victor Leader more durable and more effective. Admiral Yularen is a health buff. It's a little different, but it's not a card that sees too much play right now. And then we will see Captain Tarkin and General Hux are global buff cards that get into the competitive metagame. But I think as long as Victor Leader finds a home, it will certainly be good. I can't promise that there will be like a space aggro villain command deck, but if there is, I expect Victor Leader will be a major part of it. And, you know, let's talk about some of this stuff, because Darth Vader, this is the ship, right? So he makes free tokens. First of all, that's a very powerful ability. Didn't talk about the leader yet, but being able to just no resource requirement to make 1/1s, and with a pretty minimal requirement, all you need to do is to attack with a non-token vehicle this phase. That's pretty powerful. And Victor Leader turning these 1/1s into 2/2s is going to be pretty effective. You can see some of these other cards. 2 of them are new: Kajimi Patrollers and First Order TIE Fighter. Patrollers especially, you get to play 2 1/1s on turn 1. You can then follow that with a Victor Leader, potentially even attack with one of those Patrollers, use Darth Vader's ability, as long as you attack with the non-token one. Bam, you have 3 1/1s all of a sudden, plus you play the Victor Leader, 3 2/2s in space. That's a lot of units, a lot of power very quickly. We now have 2 2/1 TIE Fighters that you can play on turn 1, as well as 1-drops. So you can see how this can start adding up. Darth Vader's ability, as long as you can kind of keep a non-token unit in play, you can start doing this every turn for free. And I think that will be pretty powerful. We just need to see kind of what other pieces we can play here. And I did want to shout out a few other cards that are not maybe directly related even to Darth Vader, but Rampart, it's a 3/3 that doesn't ready. in space, but with Victor Leader, it will be a 4/4. It would ready, so it's not that I would necessarily want to play Rampart on turn 1, because then it still wouldn't ready the turn you play Victor Leader. But as a follow-up after Victor Leader, it seems pretty powerful. TIE Bomber is another cheap card, and all of a sudden, that Bomber being a 1/5, dealing 3 indirect is a lot more significant than an 0/4, right? At least it can defend itself. Even Count Dooku, I think, could be an interesting card, especially with these tokens, because Victor Leader is going to buff them at their power, and then Count Dooku can eat a couple tokens and then spread out that damage. So say he eats 2 of the Darth Vader tokens you've made, instead of dealing 2 damage, he can now deal 4. That's a pretty big deal. That could be game changing. Lastly, Tarkin, that's another leader. Victor Leader is an Imperial. A lot of these TIE fighters and other space units, especially in like Cunning as well, where you have things like 7th Fleet Defender and TIE Phantom. Those are both cards that would benefit greatly from Victor Leader's buff, and then can also be paired with Grand Moff Tarkin's buff. So you can see how this Victor Leader can really benefit a lot of different strategies, because a global +1/+1 buff is simply a very powerful effect, and I really like to see that this is on a durable unit. So I'm excited to mess around with this. First place I'll probably use it and try it out in is with a Darth Vader deck. See if we can make a pure space aggro deck with this Darth Vader leader. See if it's possible, especially because it's a 6-cost deploy. Can it be a pure aggro deck, or will it need to be more interactive? But that's where the testing will come in. All right. These are the 2 cards again, just so you have them all in one place. I have You Now and Victor Leader. I think these are both pretty good cards. Victor Leader is much more like archetype defining. I think I Have You Now is going to be a fantastic draft uncommon that will really help swing some games. And overall, really happy to preview this. Thanks again to FFG. Let me know what you think of these cards in the comments, and until next time, take care.